You have to be a content creator as well if you're going to be in mortgages. So that's what it's going to be a part of. While you guys are finishing up the sandwiches, I hope you guys are enjoying it. We also got, plenty of drinks and everything back there. Get what you need. I have this sign-in sheet. If you wouldn't mind uh, using a napkin first and writing your name, email address, and phone number on here. I'll pass that around. Okay, so like she said, my name is Austin Bludorn, and I've been a loan originator since 20. I started in 2016, got licensed in 2017, so I'm coming up on my seventh, eighth year in the business, and it's been an incredible journey. Right, I've had a lot of opportunities to help a lot of different types of people through a lot of different types of situations. I've learned a lot. I've taught a lot. And honestly, I've just been forever grateful to my mother for even having this opportunity. It started when I had came out of active duty. I heard somebody say we got a couple veterans in here. So thank y'all for your service. I came out of active duty in 2016 and did a lot of different jobs. And long story short, she convinced me to come work for her as a process of basically just pushing paper, right? And I really didn't know what I was doing. I'm getting documents from one person, sending them to somebody else, and that's all I knew what was happening. Well, one day we had a closing, and she told me, "I think it would do you really good if you go to the closing." So I said, "Okay, I'll go to the closing." Now, I had never been to a real estate closing. I had never spoken to an attorney before. I'd never been in an attorney's office. I had no idea what to expect. But when I walked in there, the attorney said, "Oh, so you're with the lender. So if we have any questions, we can ask you." Okay. My thing is, fake it till you make it, right? So yeah, ask me anything you need to know. I got you. Fortunately, they didn't ask me nothing because I didn't know anything. Well, it was this Hispanic couple that we were servicing, and I'll never forget it. There was a man, and then there was his wife, and he had these three little girls with him, beautiful little girls. And what struck me about it, the attorney's going through his whole pitch. He's, they got this mountain of paperwork that they got to sign. If you bought a house before, it's a stack like that thick, and you're signing for like the next 45 minutes. If you sign one document differently than the other one, then you got to go back and do the whole thing over. But it's what caught me was the expression that the husband had looking at his wife, right? The whole time the attorney's going through all the legalities, and he's not paying the attorney any attention whatsoever. He's just focused on his wife, and he had this look, he had this aura about him. And it was like he had fulfilled a promise to his wife, right? And just from what I gathered, it was like, baby, I told you we was going to get here. I told you we was going to get here, and we're here. We're in the moment. We're doing it now. It was just oozing out of him. The pride of a man just was oozing out of him. And at that moment, something sparked in me because I knew that I had a key role in facilitating that moment for him. So knowing that I could give that feeling to somebody else, that's what sparked my interest and my desire to become a licensed loan originator. And I became a student of the industry. I was also taught that there is a difference, there's a gap between what the consumer knows and what we know as the mortgage brokers. And that is where the business is made. So to me, that says you need to know everything that you can about this business so that I can be that much more resourceful to the people who need my services. So I became a student. I began studying the guidelines. I began, looking at doing deep dives, looking at trends in real estate and economics from, like 20, 30 years ago to now, figuring out what triggers what. Who determines what the mortgage interest rates are? How does that even come about? I began to learn and absorb all of these different things. So as I became more proficient in my studies, I became more successful in my career. So this is going to be some of the things that you're going to need to know and not a whole lot of what you want to hear. But either way, this is going to be education to empower you for your future. So I'm going to title this one, Breaking Barriers. And when it comes to buying a house, of course, there's a lot of reasons why people think that they can't buy a house. And what I hope to do by the end of this presentation is to get you to understand that these these hurdles in front of you are not as big as they seem, as long as you have a license and a dedicated professional working on your behalf. Some of the most common barriers are poor credit, affordability, and down payment. And I'm going to go into each one of these things individually, but these are essentially the three things as mortgage professionals that we have to analyze in order to determine if, when, or how, or sometimes even where you're going to be able to purchase your home. Poor credit is probably the biggest one that I see with all my clients. And what I enjoy teaching my clients about poor credit is that my definition of poor credit and your definition of poor credit is usually not the same. So, the show of hands, I'll take 1 or 2. So can somebody give me their personal definition of what poor credit is? Not good credit. What? Well, okay. Let's attack it from that angle. What is good credit? What's a high score? 720. Okay. Anybody else? Being able to pay your bills on time. Anybody else got an idea of what poor credit is or what good credit is in your own words? I like you. Yes, debt to income ratio. That is an element, but that's not necessarily part of the credit act. We're going to touch on that. When it comes to poor credit, I look at poor credit as something less than what the lenders are going to accept in order to qualify a home. Now, you're right. A lot of people think that you got to have a 700 score or you got to have a 750 in order to qualify, and that's just not the case. In my research and in my studies and me just looking at the guidelines, there are a lot of programs out there that will accept scores as low as 500 in order to buy a house. Me personally, the lowest score that I financed was 520, and that was for a veteran. Okay? But credit isn't the sole qualifying number that's going to make sure that you're going to be able to get into the house. The lenders and ourselves, we look at the whole picture, credit, income, and assets. So we talk about credit monitoring. Does anybody use any type of credit monitoring services? Show of hands. Yeah. Okay. So we got what? Credit Karma's one. Experian. Does anyone have like some of those AI ones, the new ones out there now that kind of gives you a gist? Those are good. But the big thing I want you to take away from when it comes to credit monitoring is those are not always reliable. Okay. And the reason why it's not reliable is because the scores that they're calculating, for one, is based on a completely different algorithm than what is being used when it's time to pull and calculate your score for a mortgage transaction. It's a completely different mathematical formula. Don't worry, you're not going to learn that formula here. Don't worry about that, okay? And the other reason is those programs typically only give you about 2 of the scores. They don't give you 3. And this is why a mortgage credit pull is so important, because it gives you a tri-merge credit report. All 3 bureaus. Anybody can name one? What's one of the big 3 bureaus that TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, correct. Now, those aren't the only bureaus out there, but those are the main ones that we use. Also, that credit report is going to give us a detailed information of all of the trade lines that you have under your name for those 3 bureaus. The other reason why Credit Karma and Experian.com aren't always accurate is because some lines of credit that we get don't report to all 3 bureaus all the time. Okay? So if you have, I think Credit Karma does TransUnion and Equifax, but you have something that is only reporting to Experian, that information is not going to be shown on the credit report that you're seeing. And because that data is not present, that information cannot be factored into how they're calculating your score. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, so we got credit monitoring. I like to say with credit monitoring, it just gives you a gist. It gives you an idea. It gives you a ballpark. When we tell you what your scores are, it's the middle of all 3 scores. So if you have 700, 680, and 650, your representative FICO score is going to be the middle score. If you are going on a mortgage application with your significant other or with a friend or with a relative, then they're going to look at the lowest middle score between the two of you. So if my middle score is a 650 and my wife's middle score is a 700, then that means our representative FICO score is going to be the 650, the weakest link. Okay? Set a goal. Set a goal to figure out what kind of, first of all, where you want your scores to be, so that you know what kind of rate you're going to get, because the interest rate that you earn is going to be dependent on the credit score that you have. All right? Are we still? Oh, I see the. Okay, we're still good. So, but how would you know what kind of goal to set? Is because you first sit down with the mortgage professional and they're telling you, okay, based on what we're looking at, in order to begin our opportunity to try to qualify, I need 2 scores of blank and blank. And those scores vary depending on what type of program you're using. Whether you're using a conventional loan, whether you're using an FHA loan, a VA loan, different scores have different, or different mortgage programs have different requirements for different lenders. So you want to figure out, first of all, what kind of program that you're going to need, and that's going to tell you what kind of scores you should be aiming to have. If you say, I want to set a score of 650 and I looked on Credit Karma and I got 650, you should not stop there. You should go until you probably got around a 680 or so, because just based on my experience, this is not factual or anything, but from what I see, there's usually sometimes a 30 to 40 point differential, and it can be either way, higher or lower, between what you see on Credit Karma and what we actually pull on your credit report. All right. So once you set a goal of what you want that number to be, or what you want that credit score to be, how do you go about getting it there? How do you go about making sure that my score is actually increasing? Well, you have to look at your finances, and you have to look at the things that you applied for, your credit cards, the personal loans that you have, student loans. It has been the biggest killer of mortgage dreams since whenever, right? You want to make sure you're staying on top of these things. I wish I had enough time to go into student loans, because that's honestly a whole presentation in itself. But I'm going to touch on it later. When it comes to credit cards, if we're talking about trying to increase scores, keyword, increase scores, not maintain, increase. You want to make sure that your credit cards have a balance of not less than 10% of the credit limit. For example, what that means is if you have a credit card with a limit of $1,000, that means when at the end of the month, when the paper turns over, your balance on that card should be about $100. Okay, you don't want to pay it off, because how the credit scores are working is they need history to score. Now, the Bureau's way to communicate with you is not through phone, it's not through email, it's not through Facebook, it's through your scores. So when you start doing things that kind of give a red light to, hey, you're wilding a little bit, you're getting pretty close to the limit, the way that they communicate with you is to lower your score. Okay? Now, all in the same breath, they communicate with you when you're doing well. If you have $1,000 credit limit on a credit card, and you have $1,000 balance on that credit card, and you pay it down to $100, they're going to communicate with you. Hey, you freed up some of your equity. You freed up some of your personal spending. So now we're going to increase your score, because you're not as much of a liability for poor financial planning. And that score increase is what the lenders are using to determine your eligibility, which is why the scores are so important. Is everybody with me so far? Create a plan, create a budget. Credit cards, 10% of the balance. Not student loans, personal loans. If you open a new account, keep in mind that it typically takes around 60 days for that particular trade line to report on your credit. You're going to take a hit, a small hit, because you had an inquiry done, right? But as time goes on and you take care of that, and you have more and more months of 30-day lates, your scores are going to heal and your scores are going to continue to rise, which is why they say the best way to increase your scores is new line of credit. But what better credit needs in order to thrive is time, which is why the majority of the reason when people come into my office or they come into her office, not everybody is ready to buy a home right here and right now. Some people are 30 days out, 60, 90 days out, a year out. We've kept up with clients for sometimes 2 years. We had when I first came into the business, we had a file, and I'm not going to mention his name, but it was several years before we were ready to get him closed on his house. But as long as you stick with the process, as long as you stick to the plan, as long as you are doing these things here, monitoring your credit, setting a goal, creating that plan, and creating that budget, you're going to be okay. Your scores are going to get where they need. Now, when it comes to making a budget, what are we trying to do? Take house buying outside. If you're trying to set a budget for something, essentially, what are you trying to do? Anyone? Save money. How do we save money? Yes, by budgeting, but there's two things that we can do to save money. Spending, yes. Decrease spending or increase earning, right? Not everybody has the ability to increase earning as easy as somebody else, but we all can control our spending. Okay? Each and every one of us has something on. If you go back on your bank statements, probably, what's it, October 10th? Is it the 10th or the 11th? Is it the 10th? Today's 11th? Yeah, I'm sorry. It's the 11th day of October 2025. I'm pretty sure all of us can look over our bank statements, our transaction history so far, and find at least 5 things that we didn't need to spend. Okay? So, you have to stick a budget. You have to get to a budget. And the most important thing is, if we tell you that, hey, you're 6 months out from being able to buy a house, and we need to put together a budget. That budget is now only outranked by your Bible. Okay? Nothing should be coming up. There should be no emergency. No emergency. I mean, I know that life happens, of course, but for the most part, traditionally on your day-to-day spending, there should be nothing that comes up that throws you off course, because you have a goal in mind. You have something that we're trying to get accomplished, and if you don't follow this plan that's going to get you where you're going to want to be, then you're not going to make it to your goal. Okay? Budget, setting a goal, and credit monitoring. The 5 W's of affordability. We're talking about the second hurdle, the second barrier from people buying a house. The first question is, who is the buyer? What are you buying? When are you buying? Where are you buying? Why haven't you bought yet? All of these questions have secondary and tertiary meanings to, or definitions behind them that aren't just surface level. So I'm going to go into this a little bit. So, who is the buyer? When I say who is the buyer, what do you think that means? If I say, man, what's your name? Hope. Do you think that I'm asking what your name is when I say who is the buyer? You probably are, but the reality is I'm not. I'm not asking what's your name. I'm asking who the person is, right? Who is the person buying this? What does this person do? We have a retiree, 5-year retiree from the military, who's looking to buy a house. That's the who. That's who we're starting. Your job, what you do, is the who. Okay. What are you buying? In terms of affordability, why does it matter what you're buying if you're talking to your financial expert? If you're talking about to the finance guy, why does it matter what you're buying? Isn't that the real estate agent's job? Isn't it their job to figure out what you're buying? Why do you think that matters to a mortgage person of what you're buying? Does anybody have an idea? Close, yes, but what you're buying determines on what type of mortgage product that you're going to buy. The mortgage product that you're going to use to buy a condo is not the same mortgage product that you're going to use to buy a mobile home. It's not the same mortgage product you're going to use to buy a duplex. It's not the same mortgage product that you're going to use to buy an apartment complex. It's not the same mortgage product you're going to use to buy a strip mall. Okay? These things matter. What are you buying? Very important that you have to, and this is something that you should know, because once you tell us this, our brains are already going to start shifting into the potential products you're going to be eligible for, right? When are you buying? Now, we touched on this earlier. Why is the when of your purchase important in terms of affordability? Does anybody have a clue about that? Why is when you're buying important? Interest rates is a good one, right? Anybody got anything else? Take a wild guess. I'm asking these questions knowing that you guys are not going to know the absolute answer. So don't be ashamed to speak up. First thing comes to your head. What else we were on? When, right? Yeah, when you are buying. Why is that important in terms of affordability? Who can think of a scenario where the timing is crucial for your purchase? Very important. And what'd you say? That's true. That is true. But is anybody in here renting right now? Anybody have an apartment? When is your when is your lease up? Soon. So how important is your timing of when you're going to purchase to your affordability? Timing is of the essence, right? If you're telling me I have a lease that's coming up in 4 months, oh, then we need to start moving now. But what if my credit isn't right? Well, we have 4 months to get this right. Okay? Where are you buying? In terms of affordability, why is the location important in terms of affordability? Do you think you're going to buy the same property in Ridgeville that you're going to buy in Sullivan's Island? No, it's not. Do you think that like if you have children, they're going to have the same opportunities in St. George that they're going to have in North Charleston? Affordability, okay? And the most important question in my opinion is why haven't you bought yet? And this isn't a question to attack you. This is a question for you to actually internalize your own scenario and figure out why haven't I bought a house yet? Maybe I never thought about it. Maybe I just heard the ad on the radio and I'm going to start today. Or maybe there was actually something in your way that was keeping you from making that decision. Maybe you thought I wasn't making enough money. All of these things go into the 5 W's of affordability. Just things to start letting float through your mind. And the last hurdle when it comes to buying a house is the down payment. Ladies and gentlemen, this right here is the dream slayer right behind student loans, is because we said we have to have 15, 20% down to buy a house. And the moment you heard 20% down to buy a house, you immediately shut that idea off. Let's just bring next year's rental contract in here. I ain't even trying to hear this right now. I ain't even trying to hear it. When the reality is there are programs out there designed to help you by lowering the requirement. You can buy a house with as little as no money down. Most traditional funding programs require between 3 to 5% down. For simple numbers, if we're talking about a $100,000 house, which we know doesn't really exist, right? So that would be between $3,000 to $5,000. And if you were in the mindset that I needed 20% down, you heard $20,000, right? For most of us, the biggest check in our life that we're going to get throughout the year is going to come right around tax time. And that's what makes you being here so important, because you're impacting your win by figuring out your down payment. That may be when you're seeing your opportunity to buy a house. And that's why you hear a lot of people, you probably see a lot of stuff on your phones or ads. Real estate starts coming up really, really big. Come tax time, everybody is pushing ads out. Everybody wants you to spend money on something stupid. Everybody wants you to take that tax money and buy yourself a set of bouncing rims or something ridiculous, right? No. You had an opportunity to get ahead here. Let's use that money for something that's practical, right? There's also down payment assistance. Is it right for you? This is the part where I get chased out of town with pitchforks, right? Down payment assistance should not be a goal. The reason why down payment assistance is there is for people who have, at one point in time, maybe they had the money saved up, but then life happened. The people who are able to save the kind of money it takes to buy a house, if you're able to have the discipline to put together 3 to 5% of your down payment, and then something happens, usually those are the kind of people who have a set of disciplines for their personal lives, for their spiritual lives, for their financial lives, and they're doing things the right way because they have tweaked things in their life to a point where they can save money every month, even in this aggressive economy that we're in right now. Down payment assistance at its core was put together for, oh man, something just happened. But the problem that we see, especially in our communities, is that when we hear down payment assistance, first, we think it's a program that we should reach for. And the mentality that we have to change is not to try to, lower the ceiling, but increase our floor, right? So, are there down payment assistance programs out there? Absolutely. But it's to your benefit. It's to your financial benefit if you're able to purchase a home through standard means. Now, I'm not trying to scare you off from down payment assistance, but I will tell you this. Most times with down payment assistance, they come in the form of a higher interest rate than what you're seeing on the standard market, and they're usually coming in the form of a second loan. Now, that may not seem like a big thing because they're going to tell you, oh, the second loan, yeah, it's a secondary lien on the house, but it's only additional $80. But if your down payment if you're buying a $300,000 house, and let's just say for numbers, we're looking at a down payment of, you know, $15,000. I'm just making it up. And you get that in down payment assistance. So now you have to take a second loan for your down payment. When it comes time for you to sell the property, when it comes time for you to refinance the property, guess what? That's an extra $15,000 you have to give up in your equity. Okay? Life after closing. We're going back to our concept of putting a budget together now. You have to make sure that once you figured out what you're going to need in order to buy this house, regardless of the program that you're using, even if you're using a VA loan where you don't put any money down, you have to make sure that once you close on that house, if you were closing on this house today, are you still comfortable? Can you still live? Can you breathe? Can you function? Do you have a family? Because guess what? Just because you close on the house doesn't mean the kids don't go to school tomorrow, right? So you want to make sure that you're planning everything down to a T. Take some time to actually figure out what you're doing with your money, what's happening with your life. Look at your bank statements, see what can come off. Maybe it's giving up Netflix and Hulu and all these other streaming services for a few months. Maybe it's going to shopping in the grocery store as opposed to actually going out to eat every single day. There's 1,000 different ways that you can do it, but you have to start thinking about life in a very different way if you're not accustomed to doing it. So consider your life after closing in order to make the down payment that you're looking for. Okay, now we're going to talk about the process. No more doom and gloom, okay? This is essentially the process from start to finish. I'm not going to read this all out to you because right there everybody can see it, but I am going to talk about it. When you decide that you want to make the decision you want to buy a house, first of all, congratulations. Because not many people are able to make that decision. And especially if you're making that decision and having no idea how I'm going to get started. A lot of you here because of that. So congratulations to you. When we talk about doing a pre-screen, we're doing an introduction to your life. Who you are, how many kids you have, where have you lived for the past couple of years, where you're working at. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Then we're going to do the CIA analysis. Credit, income, and yes. I'm sorry. Oh, how much time we got left? 10 minutes? Oh, okay. All right. I'll speed it up then. All right. So CIA analysis, we're going to talk about your credit, income, and assets. After we do the CIA analysis, then you're going to get a pre-approval. That pre-approval is going to tell your real estate agent, and it's going to tell the seller how much you've actually been qualified to do. Once you've been pre-approved, you're going to go under contract. That contract is going to come back to us, and we're going to submit that contract to the lender. That lender is then going to send it to their underwriting department, and they're going to cross T's and dot I's to make sure everything is correct in that process. Once we have cleared all the conditions, this is every real estate professional's favorite words to hear, CTC, clear to close, we're clear to close. The joyous day, the lender gives their final approval, you get your congratulations, Ms. D brings you a nice bottle of wine and some flowers, and she thanks you, and she spends the next 48 hours asking you for a referral, right? All right, so I do have a lot. I'm gonna start breezing through a lot of this stuff. I know we're short on time. So when we talk about credit, we're going to pull the credit. We talked about that earlier. We're going to analyze your entire report. What I'm really looking for is any derogatories. How many times have we been 30 days late on any account? Do we have any collections? Do we have any charge off? Things of that nature. The documents we're going to collect for your income, last 30-day pay stubs, and your W-2s. If you're self-employed, anybody self-employed in here have a business? Yeah. Okay. So we're going to look at your last 2 years tax returns. Write this down. We determine your income by analyzing line 31 of your Schedule C for years 1 and years 2 across 24 months. That number is your monthly income. Keep that in mind when you're writing stuff off. Okay. Debt to income ratio. That's more of a one-on-one conversation. Depending on the program that you use, is going to determine what the DTI has to be. One thing I will say about that, I personally believe for every family, the debt to income ratio is the most important number in any transaction. I think that the DTI is more important than your credit score. Why? Because when we look at your DTI, that's what's telling you and your family how your spending is as it compares to your total debt. Even if you're not buying a house, you, your family, your husband, your wife, you guys should know collectively what your debt to income ratio is. It gives you a whole different headspace. All right. We have to collect some assets. Types of assets include bank statements, 401ks, and I can even use a whole term life insurance policy with a cash value. I'm going to skip this part because I had a little scenario set up just showing you the difference between the economics of 2013 and where it is today. Get us past this a little bit. Okay, so this is didn't update this one, but it's still the same information. Like I said before, typically we need 2 scores of 580 before from a credit score that we pulled, right? Typically you want 3% of the loan amount saved. On average, if we have a total income of $60,000, then we have I'd say we have a pulse to buy a house. And it may not be able to buy the house on Johns Island, but we have a pulse to buy a house. Okay. Ms. D talked about that. Okay, so this is some of the different type of lending programs where I talked about earlier that are more pertinent to you guys. So the most common one that I've used is FHA. It has the lowest down payment with the lowest credit score allowance with the highest debt to income ratio threshold. Okay, FHA has a minimum requirement of 3.5%. Only requires 2 scores of 580. If you're putting 10% down, you can go down to 500. And a DTI of actually is 56.99999. I didn't feel like writing. I had to put 57. Right. USDA, you're making no down payment, but you are still responsible for your closing costs. That usually has a minimum credit score of 640. And what makes USDA so aggressive is that it has a DTI threshold of 45%. That means all of your income and all of your debt, to include the new mortgage payment, cannot be more than 0.45. Okay? With the VA, again, 0 down payment, but you also want to make sure that you have some money for closing costs. If you're using Ms. D, she does a great job of negotiating closing costs from the seller. So it is very possible that you're not going to you come to closing with nothing. I know when I wrote my mortgage, I actually got a check for the closing. That was a great day. But and that's just based on the lender that we're going to be moving forward with. Conventional loans. This is what everybody kind of hears a lot of the clickbait and doom and gloom from, because conventional loans, the better, if you put 20% down, it's usually a better loan to pass through underwriting. Doesn't mean it's always a better loan for you, depending on how much you're buying. They usually have a minimum credit score of 620, and again, we're at a 45% cap on debt to income ratio. They do let you go a little bit higher if you have higher scores or you're putting more money down. But for most of us, you would probably fall between FHA or conventional loans. And if you are self-employed and you don't feel like writing off all your tax returns, that we do have ways you can still buy and refinance your property. There's a lot of different, they're called non-QM mortgages. We can do a bank statement loan where essentially we're taking 12 months average of all of your deposits, and that's going to account for your income. The downside of that is going to come at a slightly higher interest rate. But now you can, if you want to continue to write off all your income, you can feel free to do so and still purchase real estate without worrying about it. I don't think any of these other programs are going to pertain to a lot of us here. The DSCR and fix and flip, that's more for real estate investors, and those require another class altogether. So I believe that was pretty much all I had. So, like I said, first of all, I want to, again, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. That's all I really have. I want to open up any questions, and I know we're coming down to our last few minutes. So, does anybody have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
What if you have the money, but your credit score is shy?
Here's the thing that I tell everybody: it's credit, income, and assets. I need two of those to be strong for us to have a pulse. If you have poor credit, but you make good money and you have a lot of money, we have a pulse. Okay? And any combination of those three, if I need two of them to be strong. So if you don't have a whole bunch of money, but you have really good credit and you make excellent income, there's a program for you. Okay, but that's what I would tell you: credit, income, and assets. Two of those three have to be strong. Anybody else?
What about retirees?
In regards to
Like purchasing a home?
Oh, okay. So as far as like retirement, can we use retirement income? Yeah, yes, we can use retirement income. Retirees also have the benefit of being able to use your whatever's left in your retirement account as a form of assets. So even though you're drawing income from it, it still we can use it to show what's called reserves. A lot of times these lenders want to see that you have money left over after closing, and they call it reserves. We can use your reserve account to cover that, because we can't pull from it because you're pulling from it from your income. That's essentially where your income is. But we can use retirement income to qualify. We can use Social Security income. We can use veteran disability income. Fun thing about VA loans and Social Security, we can actually gross up VA disability by 25%, and we can gross up Social Security income by 15%. So the number that you're seeing on that check is not the number that we're going to be using. It's going to be a lot higher. So if you're getting Social Security, that's a good thing. We just have to verify it's going to continue for the next 2 years. Great question. Thank you so much for that. Any other questions? All right, everybody got some good notes, right? Everybody's ready to buy a house now, or let's get started, get a consultation going? All right, thank you so much. My name is Austin. I'm going to give this to him.
All right, great job, Pete and Austin. I'm just so proud of all of you. I wanted to just to make mention of one thing, a couple of things. First of all,